For thousands of years, the Sphinx has sat in silence, half lion, half human, gazing eastward as if watching for something no one else can see. We're told it was built around 2500 BCE by Pharaoh Khafre, but the truth, like the stone it's carved from, runs far deeper and much older. The official story says the Sphinx was created during the Old Kingdom of Egypt, chiseled from a single block of limestone, a symbol of royal power, a guardian of tombs, a monument to man. But this explanation begins to crumble the moment you really start looking, because the Sphinx doesn't just sit in the desert, it resists it. Its massive body shows signs of erosion, but not from wind or sand, from water, deep, heavy rainfall, the kind Egypt hasn't seen for over 9,000 years. That's not speculation, it's geology. Multiple scientists, including Dr. Robert Schoch, have put their reputations on the line to say it clearly. The Sphinx is older than we've been taught, thousands of years older. So who carved it? And why did they leave no record? Unlike the temples and tombs of the dynastic Egyptians, the Sphinx bears no hieroglyphs, no inscriptions, no claims of authorship. It's as if it was meant to transcend history itself. Some believe it was already ancient when the pyramids were built, that Khafre didn't create it, he restored it, and the true origin lies not in dynastic Egypt, but in a forgotten era, a civilization lost to time, a civilization whose knowledge of astronomy, architecture, and energy rivaled or even surpassed our own. Why does the Sphinx align so precisely with the rising sun on the spring equinox? Why does it face due east with such unnatural accuracy? Was it part of a larger complex, one now buried beneath millennia of sand and secrecy? We don't ask these questions because they're convenient. We ask them because they refuse to go away. And the more you ask, the more you begin to feel it. The Sphinx isn't just a statue, it's a message. The erosion on the Sphinx tells a story that predates every known pharaoh, not just in decades, but in entire epochs. And yet mainstream Egyptology continues to dismiss it. Why? Because rewriting the Sphinx's age rewrites all of history. If the Sphinx is older than we believe, then who had the tools, the knowledge, the vision to carve such a colossal being from solid bedrock? And more importantly, why did they choose the form they did? A lion's body, a human face, facing the horizon like a sentinel of time. Some researchers believe the original head may not have even been human, that the proportions of the body and the current head don't match. The skull is too small, the neck oddly shaped, suggesting the head was recarved, possibly from an earlier depiction of a lion or something even older, even stranger. This theory isn't just artistic, it's mathematical. Measurements and 3D scans of the Sphinx reveal inconsistencies that point to modification, not original design. Someone changed its face, but who and why would they do it? Perhaps to erase a memory, perhaps to rewrite a legacy, because in ancient times, statues weren't just symbols. They were carriers of identity, energy, and presence. And then there's the underground. Few know that beneath the Sphinx lies a series of chambers, cavities, and tunnels, some discovered by accident, others deliberately hidden. The Egyptian authorities deny access to many of them, but leaked ground-penetrating radar scans show voids beneath the paws and between the forelegs. What's in them? Ancient texts, like those from the Hall of Records mythology, speak of a time capsule buried beneath the Sphinx containing the knowledge of a lost civilization. Some call it Atlantean, others simply pre-cataclysmic. Whether myth or memory, the clues are there, and yet silence. You have to wonder, is it really just archaeology they're protecting, or the very foundation of our worldview? These questions aren't just academic, they're existential. And if you've ever felt like there's more to human history than what's in textbooks, this is why. The Sphinx isn't just ancient, it's an anchor, a marker, a warning, and maybe, just maybe, a key. The idea of the Sphinx as a key isn't poetic, it's literal. In ancient symbology, lions guarded thresholds. They stood between worlds, between states of being. To pass the lion was to pass a test, not of strength, but of awareness. So what does it mean that the Sphinx guards the Giza plateau? What threshold was it meant to protect, and what lies on the other side? The answer may be buried not just in stone, but in the stars. The Sphinx faces due east, directly aligned with the rising sun at the spring equinox. But more intriguingly, it points toward the constellation Leo, its own celestial mirror. Around 10,500 BCE, Leo would have risen precisely in alignment with the Sphinx during that time of year. This alignment only occurs once every 26,000 years due to the Earth's precession. Coincidence? Or is the Sphinx a timestamp, a cosmic marker carved into the earth to preserve memory far beyond written words? This timeline lines up not with dynastic Egypt, but with the end of the last ice age, a time when global floods reshaped continents, when ancient civilizations, if they existed, would have been lost beneath rising seas and crumbling mountains, and perhaps their survivors carved their legacy into the bedrock of the desert, knowing what would come. That knowledge, sacred, mathematical, astronomical, still lives in the proportions of the Sphinx, in the golden ratio of its dimensions, in its position relative to the pyramids. This wasn't random construction, it was cosmic architecture, and yet we're told to see it as a weathered statue of a forgotten king. We're told not to ask, not to dig, but maybe that's the point. Maybe the Sphinx wasn't meant to be understood easily. Maybe it was designed to reveal itself only to those who look long enough, to those who question everything, and that includes you. If you're still watching, still listening, pause for a second. Ask yourself, why does this story feel more familiar than fiction? Why does it echo something already buried in your memory? That's no accident. That's resonance. And if it's stirring something in you, consider sharing what you're feeling in the comments. You never know who else might be waking up to the same forgotten truth. There's a silence around the Sphinx that speaks louder than any inscription ever could. It's the silence of omission, the silence of institutions too afraid to admit that they don't know, and worse, that they've been wrong. Because to acknowledge the true age of the Sphinx would collapse the timeline we've been taught to trust. It would place advanced human knowledge, not in the future, not in modern labs, but deep in the past. That threatens more than pride. It threatens control. Control over what we believe about ourselves, about our origins, about what humans were and what we still might be. If a civilization capable of astronomical alignment, harmonic engineering, and precision architecture existed over 12,000 years ago, what else did they know, and why was that knowledge buried rather than passed down? It's no coincidence that so many ancient myths speak of a great flood, of a golden age lost in cataclysm, Atlantis, Zep Tepi, the first time. Whether you call it myth, metaphor, or memory, what matters is that the same pattern appears again and again. Survival, silence, stone. They carved what they could into mountains, temples, and colossal figures like the Sphinx, not to be worshipped, but to be remembered. They knew the sand would rise, the records would burn, the names would be erased. But they also knew something else. Stone remembers. And now, so do we. Because the deeper you dig, not with shovels, but with questions. The more the surface world begins to look like an illusion, the narrative we've been sold begins to crack, and in the cracks, the light comes through. So what do we do with this light? Do we shut it out, retreat to what's safe, or do we share it? There's a reason so few dare to ask these questions publicly, but this video, this conversation, it exists because someone had to. And if you feel the weight of what's been lost, the sense that something vast and vital has been erased from our collective story, you're not alone. Like the Sphinx, you've always been watching, waiting, remembering, and maybe now it's time to speak. What if the Sphinx was never meant to be a riddle, but a memory trigger? A monument not to a pharaoh, but to a forgotten truth, one so powerful it had to be hidden in plain sight. Let's go deeper. There are reports, rare and often dismissed, that in the early 20th century, a team excavating near the Sphinx stumbled on underground tunnels and sealed chambers. Some of these accounts mention strange artifacts, writings that didn't resemble hieroglyphs, even signs of a culture predating dynastic Egypt. These claims were quickly denied, the dig sites resealed, and access revoked. But where there's smoke, there's often fire. Why would a government so invested in preserving ancient culture actively block further investigation beneath its most iconic structure? It's not just about protecting archaeology. It's about protecting a narrative, a timeline that says we, the modern world, are the pinnacle of civilization, that nothing more advanced, more enlightened, more powerful ever came before. Because if that idea cracks, so does the illusion of progress. And here's the uncomfortable truth. We may not be evolving. We may be recovering. The ancients might not have been primitive, but post-cataclysmic. Survivors of a collapse so massive, it fractured not just their cities, but their memory. Maybe they didn't invent everything. They were trying to rebuild what was lost. That would explain the fragments, the inconsistencies, the echoes of technologies and techniques we're only now beginning to understand. The Sphinx then becomes a beacon, a message from those who remembered just enough to warn us. So much of modern technology isolates us, fragments us, distracts us. But the Sphinx, it invites stillness, presence, alignment. And perhaps that's what makes it dangerous, not as a weapon, but as a mirror. It doesn't ask you to believe, it asks you to look. And once you do, you can't unsee. And if this story resonated with you even slightly, maybe you're beginning to feel it too. That ancient pull towards something real, something whole, something we've lost not in history, but in ourselves. If so, leave your thoughts below. Someone else might need to hear them. For thousands of years, the Sphinx has endured wind, war, sandstorms, and silence, not just surviving, but waiting. What kind of structure can withstand so much time without losing its essence? Only something built with intention, with knowledge, with purpose beyond the physical. Many believe the Sphinx is more than just a monument. It's a harmonic device, a vessel of frequency, a structure designed to resonate with the Earth's natural vibrations. Sound was sacred in ancient traditions, not symbolic, but scientific. Temples, chambers, and monuments were tuned like instruments. Certain frequencies amplified consciousness, healed the body, even altered perception. Was the Sphinx once part of such a harmonic complex? It aligns with the pyramids. It faces the rising sun. It sits atop underground cavities. These aren't accidents. They are design elements, elements meant to awaken. And maybe that's why the Sphinx wasn't destroyed like other monuments, because you can erase names, rewrite stories, but you can't uncarve a symbol. You can only try to bury it, but even the deepest sands cannot hold back what was carved in truth. And today, millions walk by it, snap photos, take tours, and yet see nothing, not because they lack vision, but because they've been taught not to look. But not you. If you followed this far, you're not just curious, you're remembering. And that memory needs fuel, questions, discussions, reflection. The more we speak, the more we break the spell of forgetting. So share this video with someone you trust, someone who feels the same pull. Because when enough of us start seeing clearly, the veil won't hold. And maybe that's what the Sphinx has been waiting for all along. Not worship, not reverence, but recognition. Recognition is powerful. It's what gives a symbol life. Without recognition, the Sphinx is just rock. With it, it becomes a portal. And maybe that's what it always was, a threshold, not to another place, but to another state of being. The Sphinx faces the rising sun, not just as a timekeeper, but as a guide, a cosmic compass for the soul. In ancient initiation rites, facing the east symbolized awakening, emerging from darkness into light, not just physically, but spiritually. So what if the Sphinx is part of an initiation? What if walking past it, gazing into its eyes, standing in its shadow, wasn't about history at all, but about transformation? Across ancient traditions, the journey of awakening always begins with a confrontation, a riddle, a guardian, a lion at the gate. The Sphinx embodies all three. And as the story goes, the Sphinx only lets you pass if you answer the riddle of who you truly are. But in our time, the riddle is reversed. It's not the Sphinx asking us questions, it's us asking it. And every time we ask, who built you, when, why, it answers not with words, but with silence. Because silence forces you to go inward, and that's where the real mystery begins. You've been conditioned to seek answers outside yourself, experts, institutions, facts. But what if the most ancient truth was never lost, just buried in you? Maybe the Sphinx isn't a monument to knowledge, but to remembrance. And if you've made it this far, you're not just watching a video, you're participating in a very old ceremony, one that's been repeated for thousands of years, in dreams, in myths, in silent moments of realization. You're standing at the gate, and now the real question is, will you pass through? To pass through the gate is to let go of what you think you know, and that's where the Sphinx becomes dangerous, not because it hides truth, but because it dissolves illusion. You start to question everything, not just history, but the very structure of reality. What else have we misunderstood? What other symbols have we dismissed as myth when they were actually maps? Because the Sphinx doesn't stand alone. All across the earth, from Göbekli Tepe to Angkor Wat, from Stonehenge to Teotihuacan, ancient structures echo the same codes: alignment, resonance, geometry. They weren't just building monuments, they were embedding intelligence, and we were never meant to just look at them. We were meant to interact with them, to feel, to remember. But remembering is dangerous in a world built on forgetting, and that's why videos like this matter, not because they have all the answers, but because they ask the right questions. The Sphinx is the question, and each of us is the answer in progress. That's what makes this moment special. If you're watching now, you're not just absorbing content. You're standing at the convergence of curiosity and ancient memory. And you're not alone. Scroll down, read the comments. You'll see that others feel it too. That strange resonance, that subtle call, it's real. And if you've ever thought, I can't be the only one who feels this, you're right. There's a community out there, quiet, scattered, but connected by something deep, something older than language. If this video brought that feeling to the surface, don't let it fade. Speak it, write it, share it. Let the algorithm do what the gatekeepers won't. Let the truth circulate. Because every view, every like, every share, it's not just data, it's signal. And the more the signal spreads, the more the silence breaks. Silence isn't empty. It's full of everything we're not ready to face. And the Sphinx has been silent for a long time. But not because it has nothing to say, because we haven't learned how to listen. There's a reason the ancients didn't write everything down. Some knowledge was meant to be transmitted energetically, through symbols, through stone, through experience. And that's what the Sphinx is. Not an object, but an experience. People who've stood before it often describe the same strange feeling, a pressure, a presence, as if the monument itself is watching, measuring, listening. Could it be that the Sphinx is not just a relic of the past, but an intelligent interface? Some believe ancient sites like this were designed to respond to consciousness, that when a human being in a heightened state, focused, open, aligned, comes near, the site activates. This isn't science fiction, it's ancient science. And maybe that's what was lost. Not the structures, but the states of mind needed to interact with them. Maybe the builders weren't just engineers, they were initiates. And the real technology wasn't external, it was internal. Consciousness was the key. Vibration was the language. And the Sphinx, it was the doorway. So what happens when millions of people begin asking the same forgotten question at the same time? The answer isn't in the past, it's in the activation of the present. And here's where you come in. If this video opened something in you, let it open something in someone else. Drop a comment, share it, spread it in silence, like the monument itself. Quiet, but undeniable. Let the ripple continue, because something ancient is waking up, and you're part of it. They told us the Sphinx was just a statue. They told us it was built by slaves for a king to guard a tomb. They told us history is linear. Civilization started recently. Progress moves only forward. But the stone disagrees. It remembers a time before the stories, a time before forgetting, a time when humans weren't just building, they were tuning, aligning, harmonizing with the cosmos. The Sphinx isn't proof of a lost civilization. It's proof that memory can survive even when the name is gone. It doesn't ask you to believe. It doesn't care what you believe. It just exists, as it has for thousands of years, watching, waiting, witnessing, and now it's witnessing you because you've made it this far. You've stayed, listened, remembered. You've followed the riddle past logic, past comfort, and into the unknown. And in doing so, you've passed the first test, curiosity. What comes next is up to you. You can let this be a story you heard once, or a spark that never goes out. You can scroll on, or you can pause, reflect, respond. Leave a trace of your own in the comments. A thought, a question, a theory. Someone else might need it more than you realize. If this video helped you see with new eyes, help it reach another pair. Share it, pass it on, not because it's viral, because it's vital. We don't need more content, we need more remembering. And the Sphinx will be here either way, its eyes on the horizon, watching for the next one who's ready to see. Maybe that one is already you.